These are times where you need real capabilities from real people who've done it. Gain the capabilities that when this is over, we don't have to worry about relying on someone else, that we can be in control of our own destiny. And it's actually liberating when you make the decision to say, I am responsible for this. I am going to fix this for me. Industries are exploding, but you got to know which ones they are. You're either planting a crop and you get to harvest in the fall, or fall comes and you starve because you sat around staring at the ground hoping that just stuff would grow. There is an experience or a skill that you have that other people want right now more than ever. And that's the knowledge industry.
You get to command and control your destiny. This is a transformation path. This is caterpillar to butterfly transformation. You're in the cocoon right now. You don't give up, you just adapt. And by adapting, now you learn a whole new way of getting out of that cocoon and flying. You are not as good as you think you are. You're better.
I think it is giving yourself permission to make these short-term pivots that aren't necessarily going to be forever. But what I will say is the skill of taking these steps, and it takes courage, especially if you've been accustomed to receiving a regular paycheck, the fear and uncertainty around kind of having to hunt for your own dinner, so to speak, having to, be responsible for your own financial destiny. It can be scary, but I'll tell you, the skills that you learn in this time are skills that will serve you for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and you'll be better off, you'll be stronger because of it.
Welcome to episode 1 of Paycheck Solution. I'm extraordinarily excited to bring this information to you. There's a lot of purpose and passion that went into this project. I don't have to tell you the dire situation that exists for tens and tens of millions of people. They were employed, they were receiving an income from a paycheck or maybe even as a contractor directly from the people that used to pay them, and suddenly it's gone. Stopgap measures by the government to try to say, can we fill in some blanks here and maybe let people carry for a while? Here's what I know. A lot of those jobs aren't coming back. What do you do? There's got to be a solution to the situation. And the good news is there's not a solution. There's dozens of solutions. As a matter of fact, what I do know is that there are people who are right now pivoting. They're finding a way to make money for themselves and to make that predictable and to actually make more money than they used to. In this series, we interview dozens of experts with many facets of ideas that are going to be applicable to you. And I want you to lean in, to pay attention, to learn about this. Your future can actually be much brighter than the past. That is our desire. That's our purpose. That's why we created this. There are a lot of people that you know that maybe don't know about this series. It's a free series. Please share it with them. Send them the link. Let them come and let them watch it also. This series is something that we hope millions of people can watch, learn from, and get put on a new and better path for their financial and economic future. It's very simple for you to make a couple of clicks and share this information. That's why we created it. So thank you if you'll support us in our purpose to get this out in the world so that we can be a solution for many people, the Paycheck Solution. Well, episode 1 is coming up right now, so let's jump in. Dean Graziosi is a legend. He's well known for training people throughout the world in how to create success and financial abundance. The one thing I love about Dean is, as big as he is in the world and as much as he's done and accomplished, he is still a very humble guy. He's got a big heart and he really cares about helping people. And this conversation is going to give you the framework and the context for not only the mindset, but things that you can do to go from earning a paycheck to creating financial independence from yourself. If anybody knows about this, it's Dean. So let's jump in. Dean, thanks so very much for taking the time to share with us. When it comes to, I think, the elements of what this series is about, you are basically the guy who's a master in both areas. And one of those areas is headspace and knowing how to get the right headspace to be able to navigate what are very challenging waters for a lot of people right now, because they've been completely disrupted in their lives, their work, their income, and everything. And then number two, strategy and tactics for what you can actually do to start going from someone who got a paycheck to now being someone who is self-responsible, self-employed, that they've taken control of their own income rather than relying on something outside themselves for that. So I just want to, number one, say thank you so much for having this conversation.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. The world needs this now more than ever. So it's great to do this with you. I know where your heart is. I know your desire to serve. And the fact of the matter is, if you're watching right now or listening, we're going to share some great capabilities, not stuff dreamed up out of a thought, not hope. This is from personal experience. Blessed to be go from, struggle and worry. I've been through 4 different down markets. I was broker than broke. I've lost everything a few times, and I can talk through experience. So no, we wouldn't dare waste your time with all the options you have. And I would suggest that you take what serves you from this and throw the rest away, because these are times where you need real capabilities from real people who've done it. I've been saying this a lot, Patrick, we need next level thinking that results in next level actions that will get you the next level results that you crave. And today we're going to share the best in this next hour or so. We're going to share the blueprint of that based on experience. I'm blessed now to have started over 13 companies and had more success than I ever imagined possible. That's not bragging. That's just letting you know you're listening to someone who's been there, not someone who's imagined it, not someone that hopes, not someone that fakes it. So between the two of us, I think we can deliver some real deep capabilities that you can put into play.
That's great. Thank you. And actually, it's just on that, maybe you can share some of your experience and some of your lessons personally, because you and I are both now been around long enough and in business long enough to have been through prior significant downturns, disruptions, et cetera. And like I've also experienced a lot of pain through those times. I've learned some lessons, but I'd love to know some of the highlights that you think you might want to share relative to all that.
Yeah, I would. I just did a training for my tribe the other day, and I was talking about some of the things we need to do to be leaders in uncertain times. And a leader doesn't mean someone who yells or barks orders. A leader is someone who sets the example. You're a role model for those around you, a role model for your children, for your spouse, for your friends, for your town, city, state, country, world eventually, right? So how do we become a role model when it feels like the carpet was pulled out from underneath us, that the door that we walk through every day was slammed shut and locked, and when we jiggle it, nobody's opening it back up? How do we find that strength to be a role model, to gain the capabilities that when this is over, we don't have to worry about relying on someone else, that we can be in control of our own destiny? And I think that's really important. So what I'd love to share today is some of that mindset, some of that thinking, and then some tactical things on industries that are exponentially growing. Listen, when we both know this, Patrick, and if you're watching, you probably know this as well. In times like this, there are businesses and industries that will be no more. They will go to dust, and that's sad, and I don't want that to happen to anybody. But in a capitalist type world, other businesses will thrive. Out of the dust will come new industries, or industries that were small that'll now capitalize, because the pendulum has swung so far, it's not going to swing all the way back. So identifying what those industries are and where your energy should flow is just as important as the mindset. So let's start with a couple things of the mindset, some action, and then we'll flow into that. Does that make sense, Patrick?
That's perfect. Thank you. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. So one of the things I think is important, and you're going to be like, oh, really? That's so simple. This is what I'm listening to this guy for. But I want you to really think about this. In times like these, it is really easy to focus on what you lost or what you don't have. It's just the way our subconscious goes. God, if this didn't happen, my business would have been booming. If this didn't happen, I'd still have the job. If this didn't happen, I'd still be able to hang out with my friends at happy hour or go to the meetup group or go to church on Sunday. And it's really easy to put your energy on what was taken away or you feel was lost or what you don't currently have. And I just have to say, in times like that, this is where your brain wants to default, but you can't. You must, in times like this. I must every day. Patrick must every day. We must focus on what we do have. We woke up today. You're watching this video. You're alive. You could fight another day. You're smart enough to be gaining capabilities. You're smart enough to be an investigative reporter to see what are the industries that are going to thrive. You're smart enough to know that when one door closes, there are other open doors, but you have to be brave enough to go down those halls to open those doors. If you let fear and focus on what you don't have, you will stand at the closed door and you will jiggle the doorknob for the next 3 to 6 months. And when this world opens back up and it starts evolving again, you will be more left behind, more feeling fear than even now, because you'll feel like the world is passing you by. So we must find a way to focus on what we currently have right now. It's like, okay, maybe your toolbox, people poached your toolbox and not all the tools are there, but you still got a shovel and a pick and a hammer. What can we do with that? And I want you to think about that as I go into the second piece. The second piece is focusing on what you can do, not your past. And this is really important because I know this happens to my brain and I hear it with everybody, Patrick. Your brain defaults on regrets of the things you should have done to be more prepared for right now. I have people saying, high level friends are saying, oh my God, I shouldn't have bought a plane. Why the hell did I buy a plane now? With the economy turning, I'm screwed. Why did I get the new building? Why did I buy the bigger house? I also have friends I went to high school with that make $42,000 a year. And they're like, why didn't I save more? Why did I blow all that money last vacation? I was going to start the digital business. I was going to be I was going to do that online thing and I didn't start it. Now it's too late. Your brain defaults on regrets and what you didn't do. Here's what I want to ask you. Can that fix anything right now? We need to be freaking warriors. I'm going to tell you something right now. No one is coming to save us. No Prince Charming's coming to save us. No bailout's going to put a bunch of money in your pocket. I hope it does, but it's not going to be enough to change your life. No rich uncle or aunt is going to fix it. No president is going to fix it. And it's actually liberating when you make the decision to say, I am responsible for this. I am going to fix this for me. I'm going to fix this for my family. It is on me. Like, I don't know about you, Patrick, but when I just got goosebumps. When I say to myself, it's on me. The world changed. I can't fix COVID-19. Mm-hmm. I can't fix what the president, the government, I can't fix that our governor just came on and said, we're doing another 2 weeks of shutdown and it might be another 2 weeks or a month after that. I can't control that, but I can control what I do today. Mm-hmm. So if we think about the past regrets of what we missed, it stops us from taking the actions. And this is the part that if you got a pen in hand right now, write this down. We need to take the actions today that we can control. What can you do today to start shifting your thoughts? What can you focus on today to gain momentum? What can you do today to soothe the pain of fear? How can you stop watching the news? Stop binging on Netflix? What capabilities can you download? What actions can you take? Can you register the URL? Can you start learning about online marketing? Can you start seeing the strategies for the digital economy that's exploding right now? 2/3 of the world is home. Industries are exploding, but you got to know which ones they are. But you can't do that looking backwards. You heard that saying, you can't drive your car looking in the rear view mirror, but most people are. And they wonder why they run into stuff, right? So focusing on what you have rather than what you don't or what you lost, focusing on what actions you could take that can move the needle. And just really be obsessively analytical of the decisions and the actions you're taking. Listen, most of us have prayed and wished for more time in our life. I'd finish the course if I had more time. I'd finish reading that book. I'd finish writing that book. I would create that course. I would create a mastermind. I'd create a workshop. I'd do something online if I had more time. Guess what? Your wish was granted. Most of us have more time, but what you're doing with that time now is the seeds that you're planting or not planting for 3, 6, 12 months from now. You're either planting a crop and you get to harvest in the fall, or fall comes and you starve because you sat around staring at the ground hoping that just stuff would grow. And if we look at it through those eyes, things start to shift. Now, in times like this, people will say to me, Patrick, Dean, if you had to start over, what would you do? I don't know if you get that, but I get that all the time from people. And I know that means one of two things. People think, I'm desolate. I've been decimated. I have to start over. Or I don't trust my industry. I don't trust my boss. I don't trust what I was doing. I need to start over to build security. Everybody watching or listening right now, you fit in one of those two categories. Absolutely. But here's the thing that we can do to mess with ourselves. When we talk about starting over, we convince our brains that we're actually starting over. Listen, all of you are already on third base. I don't care what you say. I don't care what obstacles you have. I don't care if you're broker than broke. You don't have one thing of resources. You know what you have? You have life experience. You have wisdom. You know how to communicate. You know how to persuade. You know Excel spreadsheets. You know how to network and meet new people. You know how to do something in your career that's valuable. You've had life. You've navigated new territory. You're already on third base because you have internal resourcefulness. You might not have resources, but how's that work out for people who hit lotto? Resources never are the end answer. Resourcefulness is. So if you tell yourself, I need to start over, God, rather than saying, I'm going to start over, but I'm going to reinvent myself. I'm going to shift my capabilities, my knowledge, my wisdom into an area that can be self-sustaining, self-sufficient, and in an industry that's going to exponentially grow. If you can shift that mind, it doesn't feel like you're starting at home base hoping to get a hit. You're already on third. We just got to readjust. And I think if we look at it through those eyes, focus on what we have, not what we lost or we don't have. Focus on what actions we could take this moment that move the needle in our lives. We could focus on that one door closed, but down one of those other hallways is our whole next level of life. And we could focus on we're on third base already. You already have capabilities, and we just got to transition that into something that can create sustainability for you.
You know, I think that, and what you're speaking to is like kind of how you need to show up, right? Who you need to be in the circumstances before you can decide, here's what I need to do. And it's interesting because you can't really be both those things at once. You can't be the person with regrets and trying to hold on to the past while you're also at the same time the person who's seeing new opportunity.
True story. True.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's either or. You know, in biology, a cell can't be in growth and defense at the same time. It's in one physiologic state or the other. It can't be in both. And that's where I think you have to make a choice. You have to choose. This is how I'm going to show up right now. And that, I think, for many people, is the hardest part. Once you get past that, then you can build momentum into new things. And I just want to highlight one point I think you made that's a really important point, is that, you know, starting anew or starting fresh is not the same thing as starting over. Because what can't be taken away, you know, yes, there's a such thing as financial capital, but your intellectual capital, your relationship capitals, you know, who you know, what you know, those are actually better assets than having money in the bank, because that's what's going to create your future income. So I really think that you know, the way you characterized all this is very, very powerful. So now let's say that okay, I'm hearing this. You know, I am scared. I can acknowledge I'm fearful right now because there's a lot of uncertainty, but I also now am going to let go of the past, not try to go back there, and figure out my path forward. What kind of things, you know, should I be thinking about further, or what kind of actions can I take to figure out what I can or should do to become more self-responsible for my income?
A really great question. So here's the thing I want to share. There are many industries that will thrive during this shifting world. That's just a fact. So many things online are going to thrive because there's so many eyeballs online. There's people are still spending money. They're spending money in smarter ways. We're not going, I don't know about you guys. I haven't been out to dinner. I haven't bought a bottle of wine. I haven't bought clothes. I haven't gone to the mall. I haven't flown on a plane or stayed or got a massage or spot. Like none of that.
Right.
A lot of that has disappeared for people. And what are they doing? They're online making smart decisions. They're not buying the second watch. They're buying knowledge. They're buying information. So what I want to share right now is I'm going to share a category that is personal to me. Again, there's lots of great opportunities out there. And what I'm going to encourage each of you to be with this newfound energy is investigative reporters. Investigate what industries. When a pendulum swings so far to one side, it never swings all the way back, right? Think of how many Zoom calls you've done in the last week, Patrick. Like our world has changed. We become virtual. What are some of the things that have shifted? What are some of the things in your life that have changed and you'll never go back? right? Think about that. I go and speak at live events all around the world. Now that I have a 5-week-old and my daughter's 13 and I have an 11-year-old, my 13-year-old is going to be 18 before I know it. And I don't want to miss my 5-week-old growing up. I realize I can do so much now through Zoom, and this virtual connection feels more real than ever before, that I'm probably going to go out on the road a third, maybe 25% of what I used to. Now, this time that we're all at home, this is the longest I've been home for 23 years without traveling someplace. Now, with that said, I have different patterns, but so does so many people in the world. And how do you identify that? By being an investigative reporter. So remember, if you already know you have relationship capital and time capital and intellectual capital, and you're starting on third base, where do you transition? You want to transition to something that's growing. Again, I'm going to talk about an industry that I know, that I've been a part of for 21 years, that I believe is the greatest industry available. That's the industry Patrick's in. The industry so many of my dear friends are in, that's exponentially growing right now. And that is not just the information age, but really the knowledge industry. Sharing what you know to help other people. Now, you might not believe this when you first hear it, but I promise you there is a skill, a hobby, a passion, an expertise, an experience you've had, a mess that you went through that could be your message. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. There is an experience or a skill that you have that other people want right now more than ever. You've been in marketing for a few years. Somebody wants to learn marketing. The world has shifted that they would much rather learn from you and your real life experience rather than going back to school or trying to figure it out on their own. That's the knowledge industry. When people say, what is the knowledge industry? Think about this. If you're listening or watching right now, really think about this. What would it be worth to you right now if you could go back and spend a day online in Zoom with your 20-year-old self? Just think right now, you get a whole day to spend with your 20-year-old self, and you had 2 days to prepare. You talk about personal, you talk about business, talk about life, talk about emotions, what you think about, what areas will boom, you'd get strategical, tactical, and emotional. You'd have all these different things flying all over. But who would you be if you could have that? When I ask that question, people say one of two things: priceless or millions. That's what everybody always says, right? That's what the self-education industry is. People are home right now trying to upskill. People are home trying to expand. People are at home wanting to do fun things, finally learn piano, finally learn how to organize their closets, fix their relationship, get in better shape, eat vegan, be a better mom, be a better dad. This is my industry. So we've identified, just with the people my partner and I, Tony Robbins, work with, 4,500 different niches. We have people teaching art from home. We have a mom whose son had eczema and she hated him being on steroids, so she cured it naturally. Now she's teaching parents how to cure their kids naturally from eczema. A woman who went through a divorce and it was ugly, hurting the kids. One day she woke up and said, that's over. She created a framework to build a relationship with her ex and put her kids centered. Now she's doing Zoom training. It's her entire living from home, teaching parents who are divorcing how to make it a child-centered divorce. That mess became her message. The other woman with eczema was an obsessive study. She became the reporter, shared it with other people, and that's how she's making money. But it's anything you could possibly imagine, from personal growth to a gentleman I met is a mid-level manager. Now he's teaching people how to be better mid-level managers. Wherever you are in your life with an experience, a habit, a hobby, a passion, or that mess that you went through, somebody's starting off on day one. And they can either go through all the trials and tribulations you did. They can try to go back to school, but we all know traditional education is failing people at a rate like never before in history. They want to learn from you. And that's the knowledge industry. And before this happened, Forbes said it was heading towards a $1 billion a day industry. So I'm an investigative reporter. I'm always looking what's next. And now that the world has shifted, I think it'll get there in twice the speed. That's my judgment. But I'm watching the self-education industry explode for two reasons. People want to upskill. They want to know what you know when it comes to business and life. But they also want to, they're home with time. They also want to fix the relationship. They also want to learn how to paint. My daughter, and just think how the world's shifting, Patrick. My daughter, who's in 7th grade, loves art. I said, why don't you take an art class? You have more things. You have more time now. She's getting done with her homework or schoolwork at 12 o'clock every day. I'm like, take an art class. I didn't have to say anything else. My 13-year-old daughter didn't say, oh, the local college is doing stuff, or she didn't try to look into the yellow pages or Google if there was a place with art classes. My daughter went on YouTube, did a search, found a woman in the Midwest who has artwork that she likes and she signed up for a class. She's not a teacher. She's not a college professor. She's someone who is good at art and likes to teach it. My daughter said, "Hey Dad, can I pay for this? Can I do?" I'm like, absolutely, great. Like, that's where the world is heading. So that's where, when I say you're on third base, imagine taking that relationship capital, the intellectual capital, your life experiences, be able to offer that to somebody who wants it, impact their lives, and have the ability to be paid for that. And that's what I've been an advocate for. That's been Tony's industry, my partner for 40 plus years, mine for 20 plus years. And we love helping people. And Patrick, I'll go as deep as you want on that. I just really wanted to awaken people to industry, because right now, even, most people I know, it's like everything's dead. Nobody's buying. No industries are thriving. And I'm like, it's absolutely not true. I have dear friends right now, their businesses are exponentially greater than they were just 6 weeks ago, because they're in an industry where people are now pointing to, right? And one of the biggest questions people get is, I don't really think I'm good at anything. So I'll go deep and give people an exercise on how to identify that. Whatever you think from that point, Patrick, I just want to awaken people to the opportunities that are out there.
I love this. I hold a premise. I just want to see if you agree with this, that everybody's got some strength. They've got something they're good at. Something. I don't think anybody's born with no cards that they've been dealt. They're dealt something. And in that hand is at least one good card. So do you feel like everybody's got something to offer?
I do. But only because, in what Tony and I teach, we have 35,000 members in 150 countries. And so many of them didn't think they had anything to teach. And I'm watching them just come to life and teaching. Some people are the reporters of other people's expertise. Mm-hmm. The mom. She didn't go to school for eczema to be a doctor. She just obsessed and geeked out on other people's information. When the doctor said, "No, your son needs to be on steroids," she wouldn't accept that. She went so obsessively, she found the recipe to do it. Now she's helping other moms. She didn't think she had an expertise. The woman, I'm just going back to the people I already shared with you, but the woman who went through a divorce, when she started working with Tony and I, she's like, "I just have a coach's heart," but I thought to myself, I got nothing to share with the world. Until she was awakened to the fact that she did divorce better than most people and her kids are thriving because of the decision she made. Now she's helping other people. So sometimes it's your skill. It's your expertise. We have accountants that were accountants for 18 years. Now they're helping new accountants go faster and quicker. We have people that, do hair extensions or are barbers or artists or do e-commerce. Like every niche you could possibly imagine. This one woman does events with painting with wolves. Like, the craziest things you could ever imagine. So I believe we all have something to share, but when we don't, there's always a niche where we love and we could obsess and be the reporter of knowledge until we become the expert. I always love using Tony's example, his book, Money Master the Game. It's one of the best-selling financial books of all time. Tony's not the financial guy. He just went around and interviewed the top financial people, correlated their information, and produced a great book. He's the reporter of their information. But guess what? After 2 years of interviewing all those people, you could talk to Tony. He's the greatest expert on finances you could ever imagine because he became a part of it. I'm sure you do that when you do a great movie. You go in with a desire to help in that category. By the time you're done interviewing everybody, you're the expert. I could go through all your last movies, I bet, and ask you, and you know as much, if not more, than the greatest expert because you interview the experts. Is that true?
It's 100% true. And in the clinical world, where I used to live with my businesses, you have researchers. So those are the scientists who are experts who really, have labs and they do research in a specific subject, et cetera. But then the other type of people you have that I've always learned much more from, what they call lit searchers or literature searchers. These are the people who take a subject and study all the scientists that are doing research and then assemble it into a literature search. And that usually has a much more expansive and I think more in-depth experience as far as the knowledge you gain from that from a single source person that's narrowly focused. So to answer your question, yeah, I think people who are literature searchers, that just go out and assemble content, that's a skill that is very, very useful to other people.
So, and please stop me anytime you want. If I'm going too deep on this, this is such a subject near and dear to my heart. And I really just want to open people's eyes to, this isn't the only great opportunity out there. It's just one of them. And when you kind of pull back the curtain and you see, like, oh, no, that's how it works. Listen, you guys know by going on your Instagram or your Facebook feed that there's people in the digital economy selling what they know and doing really well for themselves. You see it all the time. Sometimes you might even be envious of it. Sometimes you wonder how the heck's that kid doing that, right? This is how. And in most cases, you could do a better job because you have more life experience. But when people say, I just don't know what I'm good at, or I'm scared, or I can't teach it, I like to talk about how to niche it down. And once you do, as you niche it down, the smaller it gets, the greater your confidence grows. And let me explain that. So my wife, and our new baby, my wife is an amazing hairstylist. So when she meets me, she's like, what do you do? And, we're figuring all this out. And she's like, I think I get it, but I could never teach. She's an amazing hairstylist, right? Has done really well for herself. So she goes, I don't know. I'm just good at talking to people. And I knew that she makes 10 times the average hairstylist. You don't make 10 times the average norm in America by being okay. So this is what I said to her. I said, we should run classes and you should help other hairstylists who don't make the money you make. She goes, I'd love that, but I don't know. That's so big. And think about this. When I said you should help people, the first thing she thought of is, how do I help people in this huge beauty industry? And I said, beauty industry is big. That's true. But let's niche it down to just the hair industry. So now it's just the hair. She's like, yeah. And our conversation kept evolving, Patrick. I said, but you don't make great money by just cutting hair or doing blow drying. A lot of people do that. Dry bars, crushing it around the world, all these things. But that's not what you do. You really specialize in hair extensions, because she had what is it when you lose some hair? She lost some pieces of hair.
Alopecia.
Hair extensions became something she loved. Yeah.
Alopecia.
And she loves making women look beautiful. She loves when they come in with a little bit thinning hair, or they just want a full, thick hair. She loves it. And that's why she does so well. She has the highest level clients in all of Arizona, all come to her. Women flying from all around the country, in fact, come to her. So I said, what if you just taught women how to do hair extensions? And I watched her light up. She's like, oh, I could do that tomorrow. That's easy. I said, okay, let's niche it down one more time. Do you do 1 million different types of hair extensions? She's like, there's only 6, and I don't like all of them. I only like 1. There's one that's my favorite, and it doesn't hurt the women's hair. It doesn't feel annoying. It doesn't pull, give you a headache. And I said, how would you like not to teach the beauty industry, not just the hair industry, not just the extensions, but the tiny little niche of the type of extensions you do? She goes, I can do that with my eyes closed. I said, guess what? There's still tens of thousands and thousands of people who want that. And because of social media, already spending the time, Mr. Google and Mr. Facebook have already spent the time, money, effort, and energy to identify them. We can go out and just identify the women and men who want to learn that one thing to make the kind of money you make. She's like, when are we doing our first training? And we actually had it scheduled, and we were doing an in-person one right before, and we had to cancel it. And now we're shifting it to online. Right? And most of these are done online virtually. But my whole point is, when you start wide, it seems overwhelming. And that's what we do to show everybody, right? I had a woman I was on a call with who was an artist. She says, I just want to teach other people art. She's like, it just seems so big. And I'm like, well, what kind of art do you teach? And she shared, and it niched down a little. And she shared again, and it niched down a little more. And I said, what else? And then she was talking about her kids. She's, I love the connection of painting with your teenagers. It's just an amazing way to bond. And I said, oh, how much do you love that? And she goes, a lot. I said, okay, you're not the art trainer. You're not the whatever art she called it. I'm sorry, new age art. I'm just going to make something up. Trainer. You are the person that's going to specialize on painting with your teens to build love and connection. She goes, oh my God, I'd love that. Is there enough people? I said, I don't know, maybe 100 million, like around the world, that have teens that want to bond. Like, what? I'm a father of a teen. I want to bond with my daughter painting because she's a great artist, right? When you niche it down, and we were on a Zoom, I watched her confidence go through the roof. She's like, I got it. I know how to do that. And then when you have that niche, knowing that you can reverse engineer that and go out and find, instead of social media using us, we can go out and find the exact people who have teenagers that want to bond with them and say, hey, I could teach you through Zoom how to have fun painting, how to bond with your kids, how to do this unique thing. And she was off to the races, right? From, I work for someone else, I just do this art thing, to, oh, now I am this person who specializes in bonding with your teens while you do art.
Yeah, I think you're really dead center of where people get paralyzed, because it does seem overwhelming. And, as the old saying goes, the riches are in the niches. In other words, when you can get down and be very specific and serve a specific community, that's what you want to be known for as compared to a generalist.
Of course.
And you gave a couple examples how you walk people through saying, okay, you can go from here to here to here to here, and there's your thing. Is there a generalized exercise that you do for that, or is this?
There is.
Okay.
I geeked out on people on this process to unlock it. And I get them to tell stories on, if people weren't in the room and they talked about what you're good at, what would it be? The last time you had a difficult situation in your career or the thing you're thinking about, how did you handle it? How did you solve it? What's your biggest win? How did you, actually, Tony and I geeked out about this, and we came up with like 7 different questions. And at the end, it really just makes you go, oh yeah, I am good at that. Right? So it's really identifying that hobby, that skill, that passion, that expertise that you kind of have unconscious competence with. You're good at it because you forgot you were good at it, because you have experience in it. And once we unlock it and then help you niche it down, it gives you the opportunity to build the confidence to say, oh yeah, I could teach that. Now, before we go any further, I want to tell you a personal story, Patrick. I've been in business for a long time. Just like you. I think we started around the same time, but I've been in the self-education industry for over 2 decades. When I first started, though, for over a decade, I was in the real estate space, because real estate changed my life in my 20s and took me out of being broke and allowed me to be super successful. So I taught people how to do real estate. And then I decided people needed personal growth if they were going to be as successful as they needed to be. Personal growth changed my life, and I wanted to teach that. I wanted to teach success principles. I wanted to give people a foundation, but that wasn't my thing. And when I first thought about it, this transition, like I said, we're already on third base in a transition. As little as it sounds, to go from being the real estate educator to being a personal growth guy is a big shift in our world, right? And I kept thinking, I've been on infomercials for all these years and online. People they're not going to look at me as the personal growth guy. And here's where I got intimidated. When I started saying, I'm not Tony Robbins, he's got all those followers. I'm not so aligned and centered as Wayne Dyer. I'm not Deepak Chopra, right? I'm not Eckhart Tolle. I'm not Michael Singer. I'm not Dale Carnegie or Earl Nightingale. I'm Dean, right? And so at first I was intimidated, Patrick, to transition. I have to be honest. But when I look back, it's the same exact thing I did. I'm like, if you look at the 7 billion people in the world, man, that's overwhelming. And if you look at just all the people who like personal growth or success or want to gain capabilities, that's still hundreds of millions of people. It seems big. But when I started narrowing it down, I said, well, what are the things that make me unique? Not like Tony, not like Wayne Dyer. Like, what does Dean do? And I started thinking, wow, I'm really good at overcoming failures and focusing on solutions. I'm really good at developing confidence and courage when I shouldn't, but I have a process to do that. I'm really good at changing my state of mind. I'm really good at persuasion. I'm really good at getting people to take action. I'm really good at living through authenticity. And I started laying out these things that I was good at. And when I did, my confidence went through the roof. And I created my first course called The Winning State of Mind, because that's what I was good at. I was good at coming up with a good state of mind, not how Wayne or Eckhart or Tony or anybody else did it, the way Dean does it. And here's what happened. It shrunk down. Like if you draw a circle, the world is 7 billion, and then hundreds of million in personal growth and tens of millions that do this. There were still millions of people in this tiny little dot that might want to learn success exactly the way I taught it. And I created a course called The Winning State of Mind, and I marketed to people that wanted just that kind of success habits. And it was one of the greatest courses I ever sold. In fact, it did so well that I converted that course, The Winning State of Mind, into my book called Millionaire Success Habits. That book's on track to pass 1 million copies. It's one of the best-selling books of the last 3 years. And it all came because I niched down, and the smaller I got, the more confident I got. Right? I keep telling these stories, but I really want you to think through this. I had a gentleman who I know has been in mid-level management his whole life, and he helped run his church. He's like, I'm just a manager. He's not just a manager. When he niched it down, he's like, I love being in mid-level management because I maximize it. I love helping create efficiencies. And he found out that he loved solving problems, and he solved problems so fast that every company he was with, he rose right to the top. So now he doesn't do a course on be a mid-level manager or be a manager or how to create SOPs or how to create KPIs or how to do Excel spreadsheets or how to hire people. He didn't create any of that. He has a training on how to show mid-level managers to solve the problems around them so they can maximize and grow through the ranks. That's all he does. And he's wildly successful doing his training online because he gained the confidence to niche it down.
You know, there's so much gold in there that I think is going to get people past the hurdles that prevent them from taking action, taking their next steps and their next step after that. But I think the sentence stem that you had suggested is, I'm really good at, and then fill in that blank and write as many of those as you can. I'm really good at X. I'm really good at Y. I'm really good at Z. And it's going to start informing you, I believe. And I think another one that you also just mentioned, which I want to highlight, is I love X. I love Y. You know, so if you can find out what you're really good at and what you love to do, that's, you know, these things can come together and really put you on the path.
Yeah. And then here's the cool part about it, guys. If you really think through it, that once you understand that you can do this, and once you identify, I know it might sound like a silly term, but I love to say it's like you're identifying your superpower, whether that's one you learn from someone else or you're going to share. Here's the coolest part about this industry. And again, I'm bragging about this industry. There's lots of other great industries. This is just the one I'm passionate about right now. The coolest part about this is you can make a living, you could thrive, you can make more than a living by helping people go faster. You see, you don't have to feel like you're selling this. And that's a whole model we go through as well. I reverse it, Patrick, and teach people, once you identify the personal growth, the hair cutting, the mid-level management, helping kids with eczema, helping kids with go through divorce, paint. Once you identify what that is, you can turn that to where you're actually doing a disservice to the people who want it if you're not selling it to them. You see, so many people, I've been in big audiences and said, who in here has got a business? I do, 90% of the room. Who wants to go to the next level? I do. Who has a little apprehension of selling? Oh, I do. Like, then you don't love what you do. It's time to step up your game. Because here's what I know. When someone gets my book or my course or my trainings, I know I'm doing them a disservice if they don't become a part of it because I can't take them to another level if they don't enroll with me, if they don't pay me. So when you unlock this and you realize there's people at home going through the divorce, wanting to bond with their teen, wanting to be better managers, wanting to do all these other things, you're actually doing a disservice to them if you don't offer the training and take their money. And when you look at it through those eyes and allowing social media to identify those people and put a message in front of them that they've been looking for anyway, and you have the ability to charge them, impact their lives through this same technology we're using right now, Zoom, whether that's 1 to 2 people or 1 to 200 people, when you have that opportunity to do this from home, it allows you to make impact on their lives, do something meaningful while simultaneously entering an industry heading towards $1 billion a day. That's where the shifts come. That's where the pivots come. That's where massive success comes at the end of a shift in the world like what's going on right now.
I think this is something that is the silver lining, I guess I could say, in all of this, is that I believe unlocking people's genius and expressing in the world makes the world a better place. So when people start to lament, oh, well, you know, it's never going to be like it was, that could be a really good thing. You know, you started to talk about how the effects of this pandemic is changing what your life is going to be moving forward, and for the better. It was a reset. It was time to step back and reflect. And I have the same thing. This is the most I've been home in a row without travel for well over 20 years. You know, I've never been home this much. Yeah. And it's been a real blessing in so many ways. And it's going to inform and change what my life is going to be like when we come out of at least the isolation that's being enforced right now. So what excites me about what you said, if I could just recap it in a moment, is number one, the knowledge industry was already on a trajectory to be huge, you know, $1 billion a day, and now rocket fuel is being put on that. Secondly, the idea of distance, like normally, and you've been in our docuseries, you know, we got film crews and there's travel and there's all this stuff. And that doesn't mean that we're going to stop doing that. There's still a place for that in our future. But now we're saying, wait a minute, I can now connect with Dean right now. We can share this message with the world, and it didn't have to just take you away from your children, take me away from my children, disrupt a bunch of things.
Yep.
And we can deliver it faster than we ever could before. So I really think that the knowledge industry is not only great for the individuals who now make the move to say that I can earn my living doing that, but I also believe that now the world is a better place because of the content that's available to it, because it could be delivered quickly, it could be delivered cheaply. Everybody wins. It's the ultimate win-win-win. So I'm excited about this. I know that you put so much time and effort into this. I know that you and Tony work on KBB, so Knowledge Business Blueprint, and we'll be letting people know about all of that after the series. But the first thing I just want them to know is to start to dream about and maybe even make some decisions about what's possible for them right now.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great to know. And remember, in life, things are only confusing when you don't have access to the capabilities on how to figure it out. If this sounds like, wow, that sounded amazing, Dean and Patrick, but I could never figure that, it's only because you don't have the roadmap or the blueprint. I don't know about you guys. I don't know about you, Patrick, but when I took my daughter home 13 and a half years ago, I looked in the rearview mirror like, oh, what do I do now? Right? Because I didn't know and I was nervous. But within 6 months, I was a confident, capable father because I read books, asked people, got the blueprint, and I love being a parent. But that's how it is with everything. Riding your first bike, taking your first steps, starting your first company, being involved in your first relationship. It's only scary and fearful when you're on the outside and don't have the steps, the blueprint, and the capabilities. Once you have the opportunity to learn that from somebody who's already been there, then you realize I am on third base. I could just transition.
Yeah. And you said it, and I thought this was a poignant example, saying, imagine if you could talk to yourself, your 20-year-old self now, and what would that be worth? And, so getting, that kind of experience sort of, you save the school of hard knocks, if you will, and it accelerates where you can get and how fast you can get there. So I'm really excited about what you're doing in the world right now, the impact you're having. I think you're liberating people. It's really, and it doesn't just liberate, like I said, there's two sides to the equation. You're liberating not only the person who said, I'm out of a job, but now I can start something new, and maybe I'll have more passion about this new thing I can do because I do know something, I do have some knowledge, and I'd like to share it. But then look at the person who receives it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and like just even your own examples, when you talk about the kid who didn't get steroids because the mother took a stand and said, I don't want to give my kid steroids for his eczema. I have to find a better way. But now, not only did she save her kid from steroids, which is pretty horrible.
She's saving kids all around the world.
Around the world. And so that's adding value in the world in a spectacular way. Everybody wins. So
well, Patrick, I appreciate it because you're always heart-centered, but now you probably have a little glimpse of why Tony and I are super busy. He's the only guy I know busier than me, and why we did this and in the first place, because we know this is legacy time. If we can help teach the teachers, our legacy lives on forever, right? Every time we get someone to gain the confidence and the capabilities to say, I'm going to share what I know, how many lives do they impact? And how many of the lives do they impact are nicer with their family, fix the relationship, more revenue comes in. It's exponential. So you kind of got a glimpse behind why we're so passionate about this.
I certainly do. And all I could say is I admire you, and I so love and respect what you're doing in the world. I know that it's already having massive impact, and you're literally just getting started. This thing is going to blow up even bigger.
Well, dude, I feel the same way about you, and I love the movies you make. I love the impact you make. You have a pulse of what the world needs, and you deliver it at the right time, man. So just keep up the good work, and I'm always here to support you. And everybody listening, thanks for spending time with us today. I hope we opened your eyes to just what's out there, and that it's not hopeless. In fact, there's some amazing opportunities, but just remember, focus on what you have, not what you lost. Focus on what you could do today, not what you missed in the past. Be an investigative reporter. Don't give up. Find some time each day to be in flow state. That could be anything, but really flow state's one word, but you say be in an innovative space or be in a creative space. Find an hour a day, hide in a corner, take a walk, put on music, put earbuds in, do whatever it takes and find a day to think about your tomorrow. Because in times like this, we can obsess on what's going wrong, when is things going to open, when it's going to shift. When you can put your focus on where you could go and get in that flow state, this is when innovation comes, when your back's against the wall. So this could be some of your biggest breakthroughs of your life.
Well, that was so beautiful, well stated. I'm going to leave it at that. Dean, thank you so very, very much. And thank you for tuning in. I have known Alex Mandossian for many years, and he is one of my favorite people in the world when it comes to presenting content and information in an organized and inspired way, and specifically to this issue. I have attended live boot camps that were 5 and 7 days long that Alan Mandossian had led, and it was taking people from a paycheck working for a company or working for an individual to then teaching them how to create income online. And through the course of these boot camps, I watched people actually not only just learn about it classroom style, but put it on the ground and create their first dollars ever from their new online business. So Alex is a master. He's a great expert in this area. He's a phenomenal content creator. I can't be more excited to share this with you right now. Alex, I was very excited to have this conversation. From my own personal experience with you, I mean, I've known you for a lot of years, but when the subject came up as a big challenge that people are facing right now with literally in just the last couple months, tens of millions of people losing their jobs, have never really been on their own to try to figure out how to create an income for themselves, but have worked for other people. Suddenly now they're sort of dislocated, jolted, and the clock is ticking. They have to make something happen because we know a lot of those jobs aren't coming back. What we see is that, or what I've seen when witnessing you, is you've run like 5-day boot camps with people who've never made a dollar, let's say, marketing anything online. They bring their computers, they come to your thing, and they go through a process for 5 days. And at the end of those 5 days, they've at least got their first sale, from zero to the first sale, which I find to be extraordinary. I don't want people to start thinking, oh, I only need a week. I mean, it's not that simple. But I know that you have special expertise in this area, and you've done it worldwide. So let me just say thank you, number one, for doing this. And number two, tell me how you're seeing things right now for people, what your context is for what you're seeing.
Well, I'm currently locked down in Gold Coast, Australia, and I was touring Asia, of all places, when the lockdown happened, and I was staying in Australia. So I'm in a hotel room. I happen to own 2 rooms that are adjoining, so I'm actually getting paid to stay here. So I'll remind you, as you're watching, if you're structurally unemployed, which is the target audience we go after at Marketing Online, and those transitions of working in a business to working both in and on your own business, and give yourself a pay raise, hopefully every month, even if you start lower than where you are right now. I know it's scary, but that's where I've been most of my life, is there. And I know, Pat, you have it as well. And so crisis and opportunity in Chinese and Mandarin is the same characters, and in Japanese as well. So in looking at crisis as an opportunity, think about what's happening post-COVID and this global reset. Here's what I've noticed. The underbelly economies of gun trafficking, drug trafficking, and human sex trafficking, which is the largest business in the world. I got red-pilled on that 3.5 years ago. I had no idea. All those have come to a screeching halt. So those illegal and cartel economies have come to a halt because the ports are locked up, the borders are shut down, the airports are shut down. So that's positive. Families are together. We have a mantra with my company: families that learn together, earn together. So as scary as it may be, if you're not an empty nester and you have family at home, man, you have a web developer, you have a video editor, you have a project manager that's called your spouse and 2 kids, And many times they'll be willing to work for free and they're smarter than you are. So you can look at it with complete and utter panic, or you can look at it as a massive opportunity and you say, oh, sure, Alex, that's easy for you to say. No, it's not, because this is the way I started on a park bench in 1989. And then I came online in 1995 on an AOL dial-up connection that was busy half the time in New York City. And I'd come from the infomercial marketing business, and I thought, wow, I'm looking at this webpage for over an hour. I haven't moved. And it was a crappy webpage. You know, back then, it doesn't look like anything like now. We had no audio. We had no Google. We had no social media. We had no Facebook, none of that stuff. But we had AOL, right? And the millennials are going, what's AOL? That's called America Online. And I noticed that, hey, for 1 hour, that would have cost me over $120,000 for a half hour or 28-minute and 30-second infomercial. I can do this. And so if you are unemployed right now, if you just gather, like in a war room, all your assets, what you hate to do, those are called weaknesses, things that make you feel weak. And what you love to do, those are called strengths, things that make you feel strong. Then I would advise that sloppy success is better than perfect mediocrity. And through sequencing and getting mentored by someone. And we have Clear Path Consulting, where we show people a clear path. Either they're wanting to leave their corporate job, they've already left because they wanted to, or they got fired. And here you have great bandwidth, mental bandwidth, you have management skill, but you have no entrepreneurial skill. And most of those folks, men and women, feel banished from the walls of the city that they were from, and they feel jaded. Maybe there was a toxic culture, nepotism, or just they had to be downsized. So right now we're forced into it. And in this global reset, I believe the education system is going to change. My kids are getting straight A's, studying from home in their pajamas. They love it. Parents aren't in traffic, cursing other people, cutting them off. I'm not going to Whole Foods with someone flipping me the finger because I took their parking space. They're supposed to be so evolved over there. So I'm doing takeout, and it's an amazing time to live. I have my own opinion of what's really going on with this global reset and what the cause of it is, but that would be a political documentary. For right now, if you're structurally unemployed, you were never safe to begin with, and this is just cutting the umbilical cord to the inevitable anyway. Easy for me to say, but it's a great pathway for you. And just keep watching and listening, because we're going to talk a lot about what you can do.
That's a great overview. You said something I think I really hope sinks in. You were not safe to begin with. And that, I think, was this false sense of safety. Because what's typical, you work as an employee or maybe even a contractor, but you're working for one company. And you had a steady paycheck coming in every other week or however often you were paid. Maybe you had your retirement account, you're saving some money, you have regular little raises and so on. And that feels very safe. But in the end, your benefits, hey, that's a part of feeling safe, right? I got benefits from my job. But in the end, the reality, I think, that is shocking for millions and millions of people is you weren't nearly as safe as you thought you were. And it would be a crime, I think, to say is to try to blind yourself or hope to go back to that. I think it's really understanding true safety is when you have domain over responsibility for your own income. So you studied headspace like very few people I know. Can we just talk about some of the headspace of going from, wow, my entire view of reality just got shattered, and I have some fear and panic setting in because of uncertainty, especially uncertainty of income, and now I have to figure out how am I going to shift and move toward a future where I'm going to become self-responsible?
Well, I will start by uttering a 9-word sentence by one of my marketing mentors, and you've met him, Roy H. Williams out of Austin, Texas, and the Wizard of Ads. And he says, the risk of insult is the price of clarity. So if this may sound offensive, then I would consider it a psychological projection, because it's true whether you want to believe it or not. And that is, you were never safe with your paycheck being in the hands of someone else. Because ultimately, we're not in the business to business world, or business to consumer, or business to government, even business to patient. We call that B2P. We're in the world where one of my former students, who was working for someone, a financial services guy out of Austin, he called me up after purchasing one of my first courses called Market with Postcards. And it was in 2002. And he was a young kid. And his boss didn't even know he purchased the course. And he was taking me up on one of the free consultations that was in the jacket. And I sold, there was a 3-ring binder. If you're a millennial, we had 3-ring binders and CDs and cassette tapes back in the day. That was called Thump Value. And this was 4-color, and I spent a lot of money on it. It wasn't just double-spaced transcripts. And it was quite successful. I made 5 figures month after month, getting less than 50 visitors to the website a day. I've since retired it, but I think I have one as an artifact. Anyway, this gentleman called me, and his name is Ryan. And he took me up on not just 1, but 2 free consultations. Now, I had sold over 7,000 of those courses. There were potentially 14,000 half-an-hour free consultations, and only a dozen people called me, and only one of the dozen wanted 2 of them. And that was Ryan Deiss, CEO of Digital Marketer. And he embodies all the core values that I think you embody with this series. I mean, I looked at self-reliance, leadership, and relationships, as in relationship capital. Ryan Deiss was working for someone. He met his wife in college. I know the whole story. He's a good friend of mine. He's spoken for me at a mastermind at Wizard Academy. He hooks up with Perry Belcher because he took him out of a pinch. He's a loyal guy. He's a great dad, a great father. That's relationship. But what about leadership? Well, Perry and Ryan build this thing called Digital Marketer, and then Roland Fraser comes along and teaches them how to scale it. Now they're from like the childhood dream thing to now there's this big business, and they have traffic and conversion annually where there's tens of thousands attending. But self-reliance is Ryan took the plunge. Now he's my teacher. Mm-hmm. You know, Pat, I'm going to say it's annoying, but it's also a blessing. I tell all my students, I want you to be bigger, better, and wealthier. And nothing is more annoying than when it actually happens. You know, so in digital marketing, it's possible. But no matter what situation you're in, the self-reliance and the leadership and your relationships, know that you're in the H2H business. And that's what Ryan once reminded me at my own event. H2H, you're in the H2H business. And so someone had to sign your check, and that check was about a relationship. And if the CEO or your higher up, whether manager or maybe someone who was competing for your job, if they didn't like you, you're gone. And you can name whatever you want to name, but you don't have the self-reliance capability because you're in a job. So now you've been forced into it. And it's like a mother eagle who starts taking the feathers out of the big nest. Those nests are huge. They're way up, like 2,000 feet up in the cliffs, if you've ever seen it. And she starts taking out all the feathers because it's no longer comfortable for the little, eagle chicks. And then she throws the chicks out one by one. And they go, wah! And then she swoons down, grabs them, brings them back up. They go, okay, you're going to die if you don't start fluttering, okay? So let's try that again. Drops, wah! And then swoons. Listen, I'm going to tell you one last time. I want you to start fluttering your flaps. So the eagle, the baby chick eagle goes about 1,000 feet. I've done free fall, man. It's pretty wild. Oh. And then like that, right? So you'll forgive. The risk of insult is the price of clarity, but I want to dramatize that you were never safe, in my opinion. I'm unemployable, so I don't have a choice. I have to work for myself. And now you're there, and you have that self-reliance and the leadership capability and the relationship capital to either go into consulting, coaching, find a mentor so that you know the path you want to go, and you have a family, hopefully, to earn together with, like my family's doing. And my kids now are working with me during this lockdown because they don't have all the distractions they had before. And I get text messages back faster with them not driving, and they spend less on gas, and they're saving more money. So you have less opportunity to spend money. I know I am. And so take that money and put it aside and learn as much as you can while you have the lockdown capabilities of doing it and taking off. And just like anyone who wants to sing or wants to be a coach or wants to trade in stock, you have a family and friends launch where you're just kind of testing stuff out. Let them give you some brutal and ruthless, compassionate feedback. And you go, okay, well, I'll improve. And you go from literacy to hopefully fluency, where you have an internal launch with expanded friends and family and people that you know, colleagues, and then they give you some brutal feedback. And then you become the zone of mastery where you're really good at it. And it could take a year, it could take 10 years, but literacy, fluency, mastery, that's like knowing 500 words in a language, 2,000 words in a language is literacy, and then 10,000 words is mastery. I think mastery is overrated. Why be a virtuoso? Just be fluent at a few things and then outsource your weaknesses. Otherwise, you'll be strong at a bunch of weaknesses, and you can do it if you just design that path. The only thing worse than going in the wrong direction is going in the wrong direction enthusiastically. So some of the counterintuitive ways, I think, is think big, but act small. And that's called testing. A lot of people think small and they act big, and they lose their nest egg testing on the first thing, and whatever that first thing could be. So I don't think you should be afraid of a goal or a mission that's too big and not hit it. I think you should be terrified of a mission or goal that's too small and you achieve it. So this is a reset. This is a reset opportunity where the underbelly economies of gun trafficking, drug trafficking, and human sex trafficking has stopped because the borders are locked down, the ports are locked down. So the cartels are all losing money. So there's more money circulating for us. And we're coming out of other, sovereign nations. I think it's a great opportunity for us to celebrate the opportunity of entrepreneurship. That's the way it is in the third world. In the third world, the Patels run inns, and they're innkeepers, right? And other traditional ethnicities, like in New York City, Vietnamese run dry cleaning, right? And they all work together. They work together, they learn together, they earn together. Why can't we in the first world do the same thing the third world has done for years? We can. I think we had a facade for about 100 years, and now the emperor's clothes has been called out, okay? You were always naked, and now everybody can see you. So just flaunt it and enjoy it.
So I have a lot of questions to follow up on those comments. First, you said it's an H to H world. What do you mean H to H?
Human to human. Ryan Dice taught me that. It's not B to B, B to C. I have, in our ClearPath consulting clients, they're usually people who've left their job, or they were forced out, or they were downsized, right? So they come to me, they have a body of knowledge, they have the headspace. We work on their mindset, which is about 80% of the process. And strategically, it boils down to 20%. It's like a rocket ship expends 80% of its fuel leaving the first 75 miles of the atmosphere, because all the gravity pulls all the fuel. But if it's going to land on the moon 238,857 miles and then come all the way back another 250,000 miles, well, it's gone 500,000 miles on 20% of its fuel because you've left the gravity pull of the atmosphere. So that's when it's most difficult. It's the launch period that expends all your willpower and effort. Once you get past that, then you're doing great. How do you get past it? With other people, your core value, relationship capital, H to H. It took an H to write your check. It took an H to hire you. It took an H to fire you. No robot came and said, you're fired. No robot comes and says, here's your check. That may happen one day, but it took human beings. And, a computer can screw things up, but to galactically F things over requires a human being on a computer. So H to H is human to human. That's the only business we're in. And human capital and relationship capital in capitalism is what I believe in. And I'm hoping the equality of opportunity versus equality of outcome, which is another format that I'm not so much for, because we see what happens in the 1930s and the turn of the 20th century. I think we have this global opportunity where things are just changing and resetting, such as education. And parents aren't in traffic with their kids, taking their kids to school, and kids are learning in their pajamas. My kids, Gabriel and Bree, are getting straight A's, going to the refrigerator, getting breakfast, and just going online. And the teacher's happy they're only clothed from the waist up, and they're doing the same whiteboard stuff. So H to H is the business we're in, whether you want to know it or not. It's true, whether you believe it or not. There's no B2B, B2C, B2G, business to government, or B2P, business to patient.
So let's say that I'm going to go for this, but I don't really have like a path that I just know to walk on. I'm kind of trying to find my way through the woods. And I don't even know what to choose. Like, how do I choose what I should be pursuing? I'm hearing about all these different kinds of things that you're talking about, whether it be, a coaching service, maybe I could start, or maybe it's, I have an idea for some type of a product or an info product, or, I hear this thing about affiliate marketing. There's all these different options. How do I know which one's right for me? How do I try to figure out my strengths versus my weaknesses, et cetera?
Well, to answer that question, here's a backstory. The first domino in my thinking and business life is Buckminster Fuller, who was considered the Leonardo da Vinci of the 20th century. And he mentored many, many thought leaders that are too numerous even to name drop here. But what Bucky said is, what I discover of what is by getting rid of what isn't. So I first get rid of what I don't want, what doesn't work. I disqualify them. If I'm selling Wagyu hamburger here in Australia, I get rid of the vegans, the vegetarians, and anyone who eats meat. I get rid of them first. That's called disqualification. And then I pre-qualify. That's not counterintuitive. That's just smart. Why waste people's time? So the first thing you do is get rid of the things that you are weak at. Alex, how do I know my weakness? Well, get an index card, write down weakness. And when you do something and it makes you feel weak, like for me, trying to put up a website, then I write it down. Putting up a website. It makes me feel drained, bored, and weak. That's called a weakness. Things, activities that make you feel weak. You clarify it, you confirm it, you capture it while it's happening. Then you walk around with an index card and you did something that just made you feel strong. What'd you do? Well, you coached another person who's also structurally unemployed. So you write that down. I coached a friend. That makes you feel strong. Marcus Buckingham, great author, he wrote a book called Now Discover Your Strengths. He talks about this. I learned that from him. I don't know him personally, but we've crossed paths before on stages. So if you have let's say 30 cards for weaknesses and 30 cards for strengths, and you capture them while you're doing it after a week, Pat, you will know your weaknesses and you will know your strengths as you've tested, time tested, those activities that make you feel weak or weaknesses. That goes into one pile. You want to outsource that to your family and friends, right? If you can, or suppliers and vendors. Things and activities that make you feel strong, those are things you want to do. For me, I do 3 things really well that make me feel strong. Number 1, I create curriculum. In other words, I create presentations. I prepared for this one, right? Like, this is a preparation. Self-reliance, leadership, and relationship, those are core values. I'm holding up a card that says disqualification versus pre-qualification. I just describe what that is. I always disqualify first. And I only want to talk to that niche, which they call them niches outside the US. Niche. You get rich in your niche, you get rich in your niche, right? And so in looking at when you're an amateur, you haven't made $1 yet outside of the company that you're downsized from or you were forced out. Well, how do you become a professional? You don't do it by making millions of dollars. It's by making your first dollar, your first euro, your first reais in Brazil, your first ruble, your first franc, whatever. It's your first dollar. And you have to have the whole system set up, which is what we teach in ClearPath Consulting, is how do you have that system so you can make the first dollar and go from amateur to professional? Huge status change. So the first step is get rid of what my weaknesses are. And that's capturing them, clarifying them, confirming them in real time. And then after a week, I have 30 weaknesses, about 40 strengths. I do 3 things to close the loop. I create curriculum, presentation. I deliver curriculum, which is what I'm doing now. And then I teach others to do the same. So those are my 3 things that I focus on. Anything out of that, I like to outsource to other people because they make me feel weak and I don't like to feel weak. It's tough enough to strengthen your strengths. Strengthening weaknesses is having a lot of strong weaknesses, as Dan Sullivan says with Strategic Coach.
I've heard it said once that one way to identify this, and this aligns with what you're saying, is when you have tasks or things that have to get done, when you say, I have to, do X, that usually is a sign of something that's a weakness for you. I mean, you might be able to get it done, but it's not a strength. And when you say, I get to do X, that's a sign of a strength, because it's something that you just naturally want to do. So do you have, let's say that I'm your client right now, okay?
Yeah.
So I just came in and I said, Alex, I've never made my own money, meaning, where I did something, put it out into the world and somebody paid me for it. I've always gone to work for, some sort of entity, a company, what have you, that paid me for what I did. And, but I have, I've got basic computer skills, right? I mean, I used to work, I've got some organizational skills and so on. I got work experience, but I just don't know how to go from point A to point B on this thing. What do you have, what's my sequence? What's the first thing I should do?
I do.
And then what's the second thing, et cetera? So do you have a sequence to guide me through?
Yes, it is a sequence, and the system is not the solution. I've been telling that to my friend Michael Gerber. Although he's much smarter than me and he's written many more best-selling books and he's older than me, he's got more experience, but it's the sequence to the solution that makes the difference. If you can have all the recipe ingredients out there, if you don't put it in the right sequence, the cake is not going to look like that picture you see on one side. If you don't sequence a jigsaw puzzle, which you see on the cover of the box, if you don't do the corners first and the sides first, it's going to take you longer because the sequence matters and you go in. With the Golden Gate Bridge, where I live about 10 kilometers or 6 miles away, well, it wasn't built from one side to the other, from the San Francisco side to the Marin County side. It was built from both sides and they met in the middle. That's the sequence. So there's certain ways to sequence things. The seeds flop into the roots, flop into the trunk, flop into the branches, the leaves, and more fruit. And what's inside the core of an apple? More seeds. And then the sequence continues. So there's a concept called COI, which is something I coined, I don't know, maybe a decade ago. That's called cost of inaction. And there's ROI, which is return on investment. Everyone knows return on investment, but you can't prove return on investment. A stockbroker can't, a coach can't. The ROI is up to you. If you do the work, you're going to get your return on investment. We call that point B. All right, so that's at the end of the sequence. At the point A, which is at the beginning of the sequence, if you have ever taken Uber, it already knows your point A most of the time. Most of the time. Sometimes they don't, and then they don't know that they don't know, and you missed your Uber ride and you got fined for $5 because you didn't show up. No, the satellite didn't find you. What do you type in? You always type in point B. So we are ROI-centric world. We're always focusing on the future, which we don't even know if it's possible. And we think it's a straight line. It's not a straight line. It's the path. The clearest path is the path of least resistance. You don't dig a path through a mountain. It takes you 100 years to do that. You go around the mountain. It may take you 10 days to do that, right? The path of least resistance, not the straight line. So that's not counterintuitive. It's just logical. So cost of inaction is what's it costing you not to take action right now? That's point A. So you're here. And so the first thing I tell people and I teach them when they come on board is let's take a few diagnostic tests. We do the binary assessment, which I created. We do a Myers-Briggs. We do a DISC, a DISC. And it usually focuses on 4 archetypes or 4 personas. The ones I'm familiar with are the competitive, the spontaneous, the humanistic, and the methodical. Now, those are not ability or skill sets. Those are just the way people prefer to be spoken to. So that's the first thing. Learn how to speak to other people, because in your company, you only spoke to that level that you spoke to typically. Well, now you got to speak to everybody. And so it's not only your bias, but it's everyone else's. So you got to learn the 4 different preferences that are out there. And it's a H to H economy, whether you like it or not. You're not in this one narrow skill set anymore and just making quota, whatever that looked like. So we gather your strengths, we look at your diagnostics, and then we go from the incompetent unconscious, right? You're not conscious and you're incompetent. That's called a blind spot, to conscious and incompetent. That's where you're kind of learning, right? And the best way to do that is to find an internship. So like you want to be someone. Okay, if you don't know who you want to be, then I can't help, because people don't get what they want because they don't know what they want. That's T. Harv Eker, our mutual friend, who says that all the time. You either have reasons or results, which is another 3 words that Harv says. You either have reasons for something that didn't work, or you have results of things that did work. The key word is or. If you have results, you don't need reasons. And if you have reasons, that means you didn't get the result. So every single day, I ask my people to do an RCQ, and they email it to me. Now, that they paid $30,000 to do this, so they do it. That has motivated them to do it. And so they type in the result they got, that's the R, the challenge they faced, that's the C, and the question they have from me, that's the Q. So RCQ. Now imagine if you do this 5 days a week, you're going to learn, and you're going to go from, let's say, efficiency, doing things right, to effectiveness, doing the right things, to literacy, to fluency, and then hopefully one day mastery. But I do believe mastery is overrated. You don't need to be a virtuoso, just be fluent. If you speak 500 Mandarin words, you're literate, but they won't accept you in Beijing if you look like you and me. But if you know 2,000 Mandarin words, then you're thinking in Mandarin, you're feeling in Mandarin, you are Chinese, you just don't look like it. And that's called fluency, and they'll accept you as one of their own. Mastery is being a scholar. I don't think it's necessary, because in that same time frame, you can be fluent in another skill. So we go the RCQ path for about 30 days, and then they find what they hate, and we outsource that. We outsource weaknesses. They find what they love, and we find an internship where they're working for free, but they're shadowing that person. I charge $10,000 for a day for someone just to shadow me, not asking me any questions. It's a great revenue generator, but they learn so much. They go, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? How come your files are set this way? So it's kind of like parting the curtain, and there's not a wizard behind the curtain. There's a whole Oz of a civilization that you could find. And it's not a yellow brick road, it's a gold brick road if you decide to go that route. So that's what we do. We find what is by getting rid of what isn't. It takes about 30 to 90 days if you're starting from scratch. And here's one thing I recommend, Pat. It's hard enough to learn how to go into business. Don't start a brand new topic or hobby you know very little about. Start with what you already know, with the relationship capital you already have, and now you're on your own. It could be consulting in the area that you're in. It could be mentoring or coaching others who haven't been fired or let go or downsized. Okay, you can make money doing that of what you already know. But if you go into a whole new area, like you want to have a cooking website and you know nothing about that, but you think it'll be fun, and then you got to learn the marketing as well, then you're going in the wrong direction enthusiastically. The shovel of reality is going to hit your forehead, and you're going to be trouble and struggle. People don't know what they want. For example, I asked like 10,000 people in a forum, in a rally, raise your hand if you're in if you've ever been in an airplane. 99% of the hands go up, right? Pat, you've been in an airplane many times, right?
Once or twice.
Probably private jet. So I say, okay, raise your hand if you want that pilot who's flying the plane, assuming you don't have a pilot's license yourself. Raise your hand if you want a pilot to fly the plane who loves to fly. And they all raise their hand. I go, really? Well, now raise your hand if you want a pilot or prefer one who loves to land instead. And they go, oh, like I can fly a plane for about 10 seconds without causing harm, but I can't land the plane because I'm not a pilot. And I've been on planes for about 15 hours going to Singapore from San Francisco. And that pilot probably dodged 5 or 6 cyclones along the way, probably lightning storms, all this kind of shit that's happening, right? And then he messes up the landing. It just, you know, someone's doing their nails in first class and boom, 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 you know, and then they all give him a dirty look, you know, and that poor guy saved lives for about 15 hours and he blew the landing. And then that's how he's judged by. So you want to be a pilot of your airplane and learn how to land, because you haven't learned how to land yet, because if you're stressed and worried, and if you're right now devastated or completely under duress and overwhelmed, it's because you haven't learned how to land. So have a pivot plan if this happens again, once you get out of it, because nothing's permanent. This is going to be temporary, but learn how to land instead of learning how to fly. A lot of people know how to fly. Very few people know how to land, Pat. And I had a pivot plan in 2001. I had a pivot plan in 2008 during the meltdown, 2001 when the 2 towers came down, 2008, the global meltdown. I had a pivot plan now. The moment the lockdown happened, and I knew it would happen because I was in Asia and I was watching it. I knew that it would happen, not to this level, but I was prepared to be locked down here because flights were being canceled. I just pivoted to virtual. And the world's largest seminar company came to me and says, can you do virtual events with us? And I said, I've been asking you to do that for 7 years and 5 years and 3 years. They said, well, now we want it because we've been shut down. We don't have any events. 1,200 days have been canceled, 500 events. And so Success Resources Virtual was born. But the pivot plan was there in advance. It's kind of like Stephen Covey, if you remember, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He wrote a book called First Things First, my favorite book of his. He has 4 quadrants, and my favorite quadrant is quadrant 2, is not urgent, but important. There's urgent and important. That's quadrant 1. Urgent, not urgent and important. That's quadrant 2. That's where you want to be. Not urgent and important. Then there's urgent and not important, and not urgent and not important. I mean, who would want to do that? So you want to be in the place where you can prioritize, know the difference between what's important in your life and what's urgent, and do what's important first. That's called the principle of priority. It's much more powerful. And there's a lot more clarity in that than the principle of productivity, which is maximum results in minimum time, right? So that's the process we go through, and it's kind of going through an apprenticeship. And if you work for free for someone, man, what an experience, because you'll find out, do I really want to do that? And within 30 to 60 days, you'll be on the path.
Let me ask you this. You've had many, many students that have made the transition from a job to going into business for themselves. What have you observed as the difference between the ones who make the transition and it sticks, means they now have a new career, and the ones who can't make the transition?
Here's the number one difference is they take the traditional advice that marketers give them and business owners give them when they have a suite of services or products to offer. They start low and then go high through upselling or upserving, as some people call that. Daniel Pink calls it upserving. He's a great author. I love his books. I know you do too, Pat. I don't think that's natural. Remember the rocket or spaceship that's leaving the atmosphere, 80% of the fuel is expended in 75 miles, but a half a million mile trip to the moon and back is on 20% fuel because there's no gravity there, right? So there's something called the gravity well. I'm a dinosaur. I'm a BG, digital marketer. That makes me before Google. Google wasn't even born, right? Sergey Brin didn't even go to Stanford at this time, right? And so the gravity well is what a funnel is. And some people call it a marketing funnel. But most people, and I'm holding a card up in my hands, if you're listening, if you're watching, you can see it. The biggest mistake people make is they go from low to high. There's a lot of people at the open mouth of the gravity well, whether it's water or it's sand that's coming through and gravity's going through. You got low ticket, right? And then it goes to high ticket. Well, what I do is I say, you see this funnel? Flip it. Start from high and then go to low. Why? Because if you are offering something free, now your sales cycle has just been extracted. It's been elongated over time. So someone's there for free, you gave them great content. People love giving great content. All right, that's great. So they're going to hang out reading that, watching it, listening to you for a week, a month. Then what are you going to sell them to? Well, a $7 tripwire blueprint or template. Okay, great. Now you made $7. Now what? Oh, now it's $97. Okay, great. Now what? $2,000, of course. Now what? $30,000 mentoring and coaching. Great. You think they'll ever get there? Will they ever get there from low to high? All your problem children are at the open mouth of the funnel. This doesn't exist in life. Let's flip it and make it look like a pyramid, which does exist, at least over 5,000 or 10,000 years ago, depending on what sources you believe in. Let's start high and go low, and let's make everything cumulative. What does that mean? Okay, so let's say I have Clear Path Consulting, okay? That's at $30K. I also have a one-year program at $100,000 US dollars. Now, I don't offer the $100,000 anymore because that was all done for you. I had a couple dozen, actually, so it was very profitable, but it lasted a year. People changed paths, but I still mention it in my presentation. So someone has just opted in, okay? They just got something free. On the confirmation page, they see a 10-minute video of me. And I say, hey, I'm Alex Mondosian. I have no idea if we've ever met, but I'm glad you're watching this because I'm going to give you in less than 600 seconds how you can do business with me and how I can do with you and whether or not I'm right for you. So I'm kind of saying, hey, I'm selling Wagyu beef burgers. If you're a vegetarian or vegan, get out. Okay, number one, if you've made $1 on your own, if you are making tens of thousands online, if you're a great affiliate and you're a veteran, this is not for you. Stop watching now. Okay. I am for the person who's never made $1 online. They're structurally unemployed and they're terrified and they have a family to feed, including themselves. If that's you, keep watching. So I just utilize the disqualify, pre-qualify. Now, I have no idea what your budget is, but you just opted in and gotten one of my templates and blueprints. Congratulations, that's called free. Well, I'm gonna flip the funnel on you, okay? So you came in this way. I look to the one on the right. I go, I'm gonna flip the funnel. I'm gonna say, if you work with us, there's 100,000, 30,000, 5,500, and then $97 a month, and then free. Now, let me tell you what's all in it. At 100,000, you get the 30K, that's called Clear Path Consulting. You get the 5.5K, that's called Guerrilla Business Online Mentoring. And then you get the $97 a month as well. That is the continuity program we have ongoing with our mentors, or you get free, which is what you just did. So congratulations, you got one of those few things. So I give each level and I say, we don't do the 100K anymore. Why? Because we found that it didn't serve our clients because they changed their pathway and we look bad. We did a lot of good for a lot of people, but if we had one failure, that was no good for me. And they failed themselves. They didn't get a return on investment because they didn't do the work. And the cost of inaction was huge. It was 100K. They asked me, hey, what's my guarantee? Here's my guarantee. You will never see the $100,000 again because I cannot guarantee return on investment, only cost of inaction. What's it costing you not to make that extra $20,000 a month? 20,000 a month. What's that for a year? 120,000 a year. That's cost of inaction. They say it, not me. So then I say, that's not available anymore. Now, Bob Cialdini taught me the principle of contrast. So I'm using the 100K. I'm giving a 70% discount to 30K. And I go, this is what you get for Clear Path Consulting. We work for 6 months. We meet 12 times. We have 2 deep dives, 3.5 hours each, which are diagnostic. There's some pre-training and diagnostics, and basically what I kind of talked about in the beginning. And then after 6 months, we evaluate. If you'd like me to be a portfolio partner of yours, I'm on your board of advisors. I make 10% of your revenue. Now, if you make 300,000, I make 30,000. If you make $1 million, I make 100K, and I do that for 3 years. You can decide yes or no. Okay. If you're not making 300,000, at least, because 10% of that is 30K, which is what I charge, then we go another 6 months for another 30K. And then we either split up or we move and do portfolio partner, or you go on your own because you're making too much money. And some people say, I can't afford you. How about 5%? No, I don't, I do not negotiate service. I negotiate products, but not service. Like the plumber who comes in, taps here, taps there, says $98. They go, $98? Yeah, $3 for the visit and $95 for knowing where to tap because you just fixed the sink, right? You know that story. So then I talk about the 30K, which is also included in the 100. Then I go down to 5,500. I go, I got to get rid of the 12 private meetings. I got to get rid of the deep dive. So I'm not adding on like the gravity well, the traditional one. I'm not adding on upsells. I am taking away by downselling. Gravity's automatic. So that's the gravity. There's no gravity in a marketing funnel. The gravity is the tension from going from all the takeaways. So 100K, you don't get all this stuff. 30K, you don't get all this stuff. When I get to 5.5 thousand, well, I got to take away a bunch of stuff because you already know what's in it. I told you, this is all in 10 minutes. And then, hey, if that's not for you, then $97 a month. We have this membership. It's a movement. It's called the Guerrilla Business Online Movement. These are our missions that we have every single month, $97 a month. That's one per mission. We don't call them a challenge because that's overused. You don't want that? It's free. And you just got something free. You want to go to the page that's free? Here, go to the page. And then here's a bunch of links because obviously you don't want to do business with me. And those links are affiliate links. And I send my affiliate partners my problem children on my opt-out pages and all those. And I make like over 150,000 a year from affiliates. And they were clicked, those links were clicked when they were opting out because, you know, there's some emotion there. Or when I say, you're not for me, and I disqualify them, they still click the link. They got the cookie, I got paid. And that's the way you recycle money. If you don't have that circulatory system working, then an economy falls and that goes into recession. The body can't circulate blood, it dies. And if the resources aren't circulated on earth, we die. So it's just that circulatory system. And I just flipped the funnel. And most people go low to high, and that's failure because they get stuck with the low. Why not go high to low? They're going to pick the middle amount. If you start at 100K, it's more likely to pick $5,500, right? So just express the whole thing in less than 10 minutes like I do, and then you'll find yourself in the middle versus starting it free and then just giving your services away with free consulting, and you're wasting your time and your family's private time and money. So that's the biggest difference, is flipping the funnel. I make people flip the funnel and start high and go low. They say, well, I don't have anything at that high level. I said, just try to sell it. So then, Alex, I just got a $55,000 sale. What do I do? I go, look, that's your problem. That's the problem I cause, okay? Those aren't the ones I solve, but let's do some coaching around it. And then they figure out a way when they've sold it. We have people sell first and then create the curriculum. That's the proof of concept. I sell a training, see if anyone's interested, and then I create the curriculum, and I create it through the movement of the people who said yes. What else do you want? What else do you want? Taglines. Families that live together, stay together. Families that pray together, stay together. I use families that learn together, stay together. We took that to a vote. Well, there's a better verb than stay. So we said earn, grow, succeed. Yeah, succeed. Success resources, succeed movement. Families that learn together, succeed together. And everyone took that vote, and that was the number one vote that we got. So people support the things they create, Pat. And if you get in a group and a little mastermind, it could be free with other people who are structurally unemployed. You can commiserate together, you can learn together, you can earn together, and hopefully you can be apprentices together and refer each other to where you want to be. But start high, then go low. Don't start low and then go high.
Is it reasonable just to start with a single service or a single idea, a single product, and a single price, as compared to having to have the ranges? As a matter of fact, might be better in your opinion, or no?
Well, I think you have the ranges, and that's the theory and the hypothesis, and you label them, but you only have one service you can deliver. Don't start it free. Start in the middle somewhere. Like one $1,000 client is worth 1,000 $1 clients. And it's just as hard to get a $1 sale as it is a $1,000 sale. That's true whether you believe it or not. I know, before Google digital marketer, it takes just as much energy, just as much effort to get that $1 than it is the 1,000, believe it or not. Now, one is more than the other, but it takes as much energy and effort. So start with one. I would start, if you have 10,000, that's 10 $1,000 offers. Well, that $1,000 client or customer, you have 10 times less work and more likely to be less of a problem child than the $1,000 client. It's a phenomenon. So start with one, but have others in the workings kind of dimmed out, right? Where you're saying, this is our future, but this is what we have right now. And start with a service that you know about, that you can do. And mentorship, coaching, consulting is the easiest thing you can do. Well, I have no right to be a coach or consultant. Well, of course you do. You probably know something that other people don't know coming from where you came from. You can coach those people who are still in that line of work, or you can coach what you know there to civilians and entrepreneurs outside a corporate environment to do that work, or government employees who want to go on their own. You could coach them as well. There's a huge group of people, but it's time to get out of the wilderness because you're there anyway. You've been thrown out, right? So if you're out and you're outside the walls of the city, well, you can either start looking for shelter and gather some wood for a fire, or you can just sit there and freeze. And I don't think you want to do that with your family. So it's time to start moving. The early bird may get the worm, but it's the second mouse that gets the cheese. That first mouse was slaughtered. So you don't have to be first at anything, right? And plagiarism, if you steal from one source, that's called plagiarism. Research is if you steal from many sources, right? That's why there are many companies called something research. They're great thieves, from many, many sources, right? And so the bottom line is, the only difference is you get to command and control your destiny. And it was a farce to begin with. It was a facade. And now you get to see what you're capable of, so that if you are asked back, if you were in a corporate environment, now you have a choice. I tell people who are in corporate, and we work with those as well, do not leave your job until you've matched your income. Mm-hmm. And they match because now they've doubled their income. So don't leave until you match the income. And that's when they leave. It's not about a baby eagle learning how to fly. This is much different. This is a transformation, Pat. What you're doing with the Paycheck solution is you're allowing people to write their own paycheck, right? It's kind of like printing your own money, right? And the way you do it is through relationship capital of having money in the bank because people are paying you. This is caterpillar to butterfly transformation. You're in the cocoon right now. I'm locked down. I'm literally in a cocoon in paradise, surfer's paradise, in a part of Gold Coast, Australia, looking right at the water on the 17th floor, right next to the Q1 building, tallest residential tower in the world. All right, so that's a blessing, but I miss my family. So what do? We do Zoom chats, and we get to see each other that way. I have a friend, Sandra, who's doing with her family in Mexico games on Zoom. So, you don't give up, you just adapt. And by adapting, now you learn a whole new way of getting out of that cocoon and flying as a butterfly, as a monarch, hopefully. And that's not woo-woo. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Yeah. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. That's an Alexism, Pat.
Yeah, well, I think it's an important context in the sense that if you did lose your job, that's painful, but suffering is not doing anything about it. And that's what I'm hoping, that we're igniting some thinking and some motivation, to take some action. So, Alex, I appreciate you sharing all this. Do you have, quick final thought for everybody before we tie up?
Yes, we'll end with appreciation. It means expansion. Appreciation of money, appreciation of a friend. You expand someone. Depreciate, that's contraction. Depreciation of money, depreciating a friend. You may not call it that, but that's when they're reduced. So this is a time to appreciate all the resources that you have and know one thing, and I'll look right in the camera when I say this. You and I may have never met. I'm not talking to Pat now. I'm talking to you. You are not as good as you think you are. You're better. And so it's time to prove it. You have no right not to prove it.
I love it. Well, my friend, I wish you ongoing happiness, stuck in paradise where you are, but hopefully you'll make it home soon. And I really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's like early morning where you are, so I appreciate taking the time to share your decades now of experience in this exact realm, and I think it's going to serve a lot of people. So thank you for that.
Pat, you're one of my 10. We have a little experiment we do in our rooms, like whose arms are you willing to die in? And I have people get 10 people, and you're one of my 10. So thank you.
Thank you, and hopefully you won't be dying anytime soon. That's awesome. So thanks very much, Alex. When someone comes to me and says, I've lost my job, I don't have income coming anymore, I have to become self-reliant, I don't know what to do, how do I choose? The first thing I think of is Ryan Levesque. He literally wrote the book on this. It's called Choose. Ryan is brilliant. He has really studied this thing called going into business for yourself, creating your own income. The thing about Ryan is he started life, went to college, did the conventional thing. Actually, he went to Ivy League school. He got out, he had a good job, and then found out one day that he no longer had a paycheck. And he had a wife, and he had to figure out what to do. And through his story, as far as what he figured out along the way, and then the strategies that he's developed to be able to teach this to other people, has not only speculatively, but proven to be effective for people to go from paycheck to self-employed, to be able to create their own income, to take control of their financial destiny. Ryan is young, he's smart, he's energetic, and he's got the right ideas, very focused. So let's dig in, get ready to start writing with your pen and pad. Ryan Levesque's coming up. Ryan, thanks so much for being here. If there's anybody that can speak to this topic and from personal experience as well as practical knowledge and advice, I think that's you. So why don't we start out with your story, because I think that's going to tell a lot of the tale.
Yeah, Patrick, first of all, thanks for having me here. It's great to be back, and it's really great to be here with you. And I'm so glad that you're doing this. I can relate so much, and I have a ton of empathy for anyone right now who's been in a position where either you've lost your job, your job has been compromised, you've been downsized, you've been laid off, whatever it may be. And the reason for that is I was in that exact same position in 2008 in the wake of the global financial crisis. The company that I was working for was about to lay off all their employees. And out of college, I had only had jobs. I was a W-2 employee. I'd have jobs, coming out of college. And in the background, I had this desire to someday start my own thing. I didn't know what that looked like. I just knew that I didn't want to have to be at the mercy of one company, having to go on my hands and knees to beg for a raise if I wanted to make more money. I wanted to be in control of my own destiny. And so when that happened in 2008, and I found out that I was about to lose my job, I took that as that sign from above, whatever, that now's the time, right? If not now, then when? And I left that job. I donated everything that I owned at the time. And my wife was in grad school, so it's not like I had a spouse who was making a great income that I could lean on. She was basically making a small stipend, and she was pursuing her PhD. And we literally started back from ground zero. I had no income coming in. I had a little bit of money that I'd saved up, and this desire to start my own business. And here we are, 12 years later. My original goal was, I said, if I could somehow make $10,000 a month, like that's all I would ever want. Like if I could just make $10,000 a month, I thought that's all I'd ever want. That was like my someday maybe goal. And here we are 12 years later, and my wife and I now, we own a business that we make about gross sales, $10 million a year working from home. Mm-hmm. And so I've learned so much wisdom that I've picked up along the way. And what I'd love to do is really focus in on anybody who's in that exact same position, where you're at that place where you've lost your main source of income, and to really position what we're experiencing right now in the world as the greatest thing that could have ever happened. In spite of all the challenges that we're facing, I truly believe that wrapped within that is an even greater opportunity, in the same way that when I was about to lose my job in 2008 and I made the decision to start my own thing, it was an incredibly challenging time, but it turned out to be the greatest blessing in my life. And I've learned so much along the way. So I'm excited to dive right in.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think that is maybe the first thing that people need to have, is a little bit of hope, saying, hey, it's hard sometimes to see the loss of a job, loss of income, uncertainty, et cetera. But you're not, there's so many people who said, in hindsight, it's a blessing. It forced me to do something and put me on a path I otherwise wouldn't have been on. And you're a living example of that. So without more ado, why don't we go ahead and dive in? And what advice would you have for now? You're talking to that person, your younger self, or you're talking to that person that's in this circumstance right now, and they have that uncertainty, and they don't really even know where to begin. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, so there's a couple big decisions to make. There's a couple of sort of things. There's a million ways to make $1 million, right? There's probably 100 million ways to make $100,000. So there's no it's not like there's short of options. What holds most people back, I think, is the paradox of choice. It's just like, do I do this? Do I do that? Do I do this? Do I that? And you have so many voices, so much noise, so much chatter that's happening. And the reality is, you've got to pick a path and move forward. And so there's a couple things that I've learned along the way to help kind of narrow down your focus on what it is that you're actually going to do. And then from there, have some real practical, immediate next steps you can take to start moving things in the right direction. So the first thing that you've got to decide is what market are you going to serve? Who are you going to serve? And what I mean by that is, you have to decide what type of person, what market of people are you going to help. Now, what is a market exactly? A market is a group of people that all share the same conflict. Now, conflict can be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. But what that means is, it's a group of people that aren't necessarily of the same age or gender or skin color or station in life, but it's that a group of people that share the same conflict. They want to learn how to paint. They want to homeschool their kids. They want to eliminate back pain. They want to, whatever it is. There's a million conflicts that we could come up with. So we've got to kind of drill down on who we're going to serve, who we want to focus on. And what I've learned over the years, as someone, I've built businesses in 23 different markets in the last decade plus, so 23 different markets. And what I've learned is that there's certain criteria that you want to be looking for in the market that you're looking to serve. So it's sort of like a quick little checklist. And there's 5 things that I recommend that you want to look for. So thing number 1, you want to make sure that the market you're thinking about going into, the group of people that you want to serve, is evergreen. In other words, it's not something that's going to be here today and then gone tomorrow. Like, you don't want to go into the Tickle Me Elmo business or the fidget spinner business, right? It's like a thing that was here for 5 minutes and then it disappears overnight. Second thing is, you want to go into pursuing a market that is what we call an enthusiast market. And what that means is, it's a market of people that are repeat buyers in that same market. So dog owners is a perfect example, right? Dog owners is a group of people that when you have a dog, you buy more stuff for your dog over time. You don't just buy something once and then you're done with it. You become a consumer in that market for years. So enthusiast market. Third thing, and this is really important, you want to be in a market where you're identifying an urgent problem that people need help with right now. So this is that bleeding neck problem. This is the thing that people in this world need help with, not 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 12 months ago, before this whole thing hit, but right now. Like, what is it that people need help with right now, today? And that is the real opportunity in front of us. That's thing number 3. Now, you also need sort of the fourth thing is not just an urgent problem you can help people with right now, but you want to be in a market where there are future problems, meaning that you've helped someone solve this first thing that they need help with right now, and they're going to want to continue to spend more money with you over time. And then the 5th and final thing that you want to look for, and this is tough at this time, but it's critical and it's important. And for those who've been affected by this, it may be hard to believe that there's a group of people that still exist in this boat. And that is, you want to focus on serving what we call players with money, people that have the ability to pay for your products and services. So evergreen market, enthusiast market, urgent problem, future problems, and players with money. And I'll give you a few examples of this. So I have a client. She, like many of us, her income was just devastated. She's a musician. So she is a traveling musician. And just imagine, like, your entire income is just wiped out because every gig, every live event, every show canceled for the next 12 months. So she said, okay, well, what can I do? How can I build a digital income stream? And so she shifted from being a saxophonist, like performing as I can never say it right, saxophonist, to perform playing saxophone, to creating an online course teaching people how to play the saxophone. Well, she just had, like, starting this basically from scratch, she had her first $10,000 month this month teaching people how to play the saxophone. So how does this check off the boxes? Evergreen. Saxophone's been around for a while, right? Enthusiast. People remain consumers in this market for years. Urgent problem. People are saying, I'm at home. I've got nowhere to go. Maybe now's a good time for me to learn that skill that I've been looking to learn. So that's urgent. Future problems. Once you kind of learn the basics of saxophone, what do you need? You need the next level up. You need to learn how to play jazz. You need to learn how to play blues. You need to learn how to improvise, to do solos. There's a whole host of future problems you can help people with. And players with money. Yes, there are people at home that actually have the money and the willingness to spend money in this, because there are people right now who are saying, that thing that I've put off my entire life that I've wanted to do, well, if not now, then when? And they're doing it right now. So that's a great example. I'll give you another example. Come on. Go ahead, Patrick. Yeah.
Just a quick question, because it is a great example. I was going to say, do you have others? What somebody might be thinking in their mind right now is saying, okay, I do actually have this sort of skill and I could teach it, and maybe it ticks the boxes on the things that you laid out. But how did she find the people to promote her services to?
Yeah, so in Donna's case here, she's been putting out videos. So she's been putting out videos on YouTube. That's another great thing. If you look at consumption patterns right now, people are spending more time on social media and consuming online content than they ever have in history because of everything that's going on right now. So what does that mean? It means that you have this ready, available, captive audience on places like YouTube, on places like Facebook. If you're in a B2B market, in places like LinkedIn, where people are spending all their time right now because there's no other outlet. They aren't able to travel to events or conferences or conventions. They're not spending 90 minutes to 2 hours to 3 hours a day commuting on their way to work. They've got all this additional time where they're at home. And where are people spending that time? The data is showing us over and over again, they're spending it in these online places. So you've got this ready, available audience that you can find people. Now, so where do you find these groups of people? Well, I'll give you a couple sources. Go to facebook.com and type in the thing that you want to help people with and the word group. And you'll see saxophone group, saxophonist group, or saxophonist group. You'll see that there are groups of people who are enthusiasts around the saxophone on Facebook. You can do the same thing on Google. Type in saxophone forum. You'll see forums of people where there's activity happening right now. You can do the same thing with LinkedIn. You can do the same thing, ironically, with meetup.com. Meetup.com has these groups of people in these various geographies, whether it's, in Denver or Austin or Los Angeles or Miami or wherever, who are interested in a similar topic, but you can reach these people online. Reddit is another great place. You've got these subreddits, groups of people that all have an interest. So you're looking for places where groups of people are congregating around a specific thing. So that kind of gets like the first thing going. Now it's like, all right, what am I going to sell these people, right? That's the next question. And there's so many different things that you could sell. But what I'm going to advocate for is the thing that people are craving and they want more than anything else right now, is access to information and expertise. So people are paying. The e-learning industry was already on this massive, fast-growing trajectory where people are spending more money to learn stuff online, whether it's building a professional skill for their career, learning how to start a business, self-improvement, whether it's learning a new hobby like saxophone or watercolor painting or guitar or whatever, self-improvement in terms of improving their productivity and relieving their stress and taking their own health in their own hands. The e-learning, the self-learning industry is exploding, and COVID-19 just accelerated that curve even further. So this is a trend, a massive trend that you're tapping into. And you can ask yourself, have you ever gone online to look up the answer to something, to try to figure something out or to learn something? And the answer for virtually all of us is, of course, yes, we have. Well, you can be on the other side of that. Now, it's not to say that you necessarily need to be the expert yourself. You could be the expert yourself, but I've built businesses in industries and in markets that I had no expertise in at all. So a perfect example of that is the orchid care market. We have a business that pays for our mortgage, that it makes 6 figures a year. I started this business over a decade ago, teaching people how to care for their orchids. How did we get into this business? Well, I bought a bunch of orchids for my wife. They all died. And I thought, gosh, we can't be the only people that have these problems. So I started kind of doing a little bit of research, finding out that there are other people having these problems, and started bringing in experts to teach on this topic. We wrote a book that we brought experts in to help us write the book. And so there's so many things that you can do here. But the bottom line is this idea of information, education, and expertise is exploding. And I love this for so many reasons. Number one, the overhead is next to nothing. You want to talk about a business that you can get going with literally just your laptop and an internet connection and no overhead? This is the business for you. The margins are great. When you're selling a digital course or coaching people online or some sort of ebook, the margins are basically 100%. You have no cost of goods sold, unlike if you're selling a physical widget where you've got to buy inventory and you have low margins. So the margins are absolutely great. It's fast to get going. You can literally get this off the ground now. And if you have knowledge and skill, either from your career or personal life, you can actually transform that knowledge into income practically overnight. So there's so many reasons why I love this industry. I love this business model. And for me, when I lost my job and I didn't have a whole lot of money and I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do? Am I going to, do drop shipping? Am I going to open up a pizza joint? Like, what am I going to do? I'm so glad that this was the model that I chose. And right now, today, the last thing that I'll say about this model that makes it so ideal is that it's a model where you can generate customers through the internet and deliver your products and services through the internet, meaning that you're not reliant on foot traffic to a storefront. Your business is not going to be hit and devastated like the restaurant industry, the hospitality industry that just can't open up, at least to the degree that they want to. You're not going to be hit by a specific geography. So if a local economy has issues, you're able to sell to customers all around the world. And you can do it from anywhere in the world. And when my wife and I started our business, we started it and we've been able to live all over the world. We've been able to travel and the fortunate thing with everything that's hit is where I know a lot of people have had challenges and struggles. We've had to make some short-term pivots and moves in our business, but our income has not declined at all since this is all hit. And it's because of all the factors that I've shared with you. It's not just what we've done. It's because this is the model that I advocate for anybody who's in the position that I was a few years ago.
So phenomenal advice. So thank you for all that. And there's such great logic to it and sequence that it's like, okay, if I were in that position, I'd say I think I could do this. I think I could take steps towards this. You said there was another example that you had that might be worth sharing.
Yeah, I mean, I've got so many. So I'll give you some examples. You can start to see the types of things that people are doing right now and having success with. So Lisa Canning, one of my clients, she's a mom and she's got 8 kids between the ages of, I think, newborn and 9 years old. So she just, or 10 years old. And so she's got 8 kids under the age of 10. And everyone wants to know, okay, with everything that's going on in the world right now, like how the heck do you balance homeschooling your kids, continuing your career, searching for a job, whatever it is that you're doing, like all the jobs, all the hats that we've been asked to wear. So she decided to put together a program to coach moms and help moms get through it all. Because like, how does this woman with 8 kids make it all happen? Like I've got 2 kids and they're outside right now because if they were inside right now, they'd be beating each other up and you'd be hearing them in the background. 8 kids, I can't even imagine. And 8 kids under the age of 10, like including one that's like, she's still nursing right now. Like, how do you like juggle all that? So, so she took advantage of this opportunity to support and help other moms. Well, so she created a program that she charged about $2,000 to help moms and coach them through and help them through and manage schedules and juggle all the things. She had 12 moms that signed up at $2,000 each. She just made $24,000 this month doing this. So that's another example. I'll give you another example, Beryl Young. So Beryl Young is a photographer. Her business obviously decimated by everything that's going on in the world. No one is paying for photography sessions right now with social distancing and everything that's happening. And normally this is a super busy season, right? It's right now as we're recording this, it's sort of like spring season here in Texas. Everyone takes their bluebonnet photos, like, the beautiful spring flowers in the background. It's like a busy season for weddings, for family, photography. That's all gone. So what did she do? She reached out to her audience, her network, people that she knew, and she just asked, like, what do you guys need help with right now? And what she got back was that, again, all these moms have these teenagers who are at home and they don't know what to do with them. So she said, what if I were to create a course teaching teenagers how to photograph? Like, so you can learn how to photograph all the things at home and learn how to use a DSLR camera and learn how to do photo editing and all these, like, that's a pretty cool skill as like a 13, 14, 15-year-old boy or girl to learn how to do. So she created a program called Teentography. She had over 200 parents sign up their teenager to this course in under 48 hours, made over $5,000 just taking her existing knowledge that she had, reaching out to her network of people and launching this new thing that she had never intended on creating in the first place, but just responding to everything that's happening right now in the world. So that's another example. In the B2B space, I have someone who's in the restaurant industry, and he helps restaurants. For example, he works in the restaurant space and helps restaurants get more better results from their serving staff, from servers. Well, obviously restaurants aren't serving at all right now. So what do you do? So he pivoted, and now what he's doing is helping restaurants build their online ordering system for so many restaurants that never had this. So he's taking an industry that's been decimated and helping them respond to everything that's going on in the world. And he just pivoted and reinvented himself. So, those are just examples to kind of get the juices flowing. I'll give you another example. There's a clothing boutique that is here in my small town. Again, small town, like town square clothing boutique, done, doors closed, right? No patrons are walking through the door. So what they decided to do is they partnered with a food delivery service, and they're serving as a way station, a waylay point to extend the delivery network of this food delivery service that's based in the heart of downtown Austin. We're further north in the suburbs. So they've extended the delivery network. They've transformed all of their staff into food delivery people, and they've transformed their facility, their store, into a place as a shipping point, as a what they call last mile, right, in the logistics space. So that's an example of just a major pivot that people have been doing. There's an apron company that's now creating, it shifted their production to making masks instead. So there's so many things that are, so many businesses, so many people that are shifting and pivoting and responding to what's going on. And again, all it takes is a little bit of creativity, thinking outside the box. And I think for many people, this could be the biggest opportunity that we faced, and for many of us in our lifetime.
And I think that's one of the mandates is that you have to see that first, rather than saying I'm a victim of circumstance, that there is opportunity, because that's what gets the creativity going. And what I love about all those examples is people have to get a bit creative around things. And one thing you mentioned that as another story, just to kind of pile on, is a friend of mine. His wife was a seamstress, really good at that. Out of work as a result of what was going on, decided that she could make masks. She sold $30,000 her first month worth of masks.
Wow.
So and someone who was not an entrepreneur, in a business before, but just basically said, what are my skills? What are people looking for now? Basically, to extend, I don't know how evergreen it's going to be in the post-COVID world. It might be quite evergreen, but literally, just said, this is a urgent need. This is my skill. Put the two things together. First month, $30,000 in masks she sells. So,
the woman who that we hired to clean our home, our housekeeper, again, not working. All of her clients have canceled, and she did the exact same thing. She said, all right, if I'm stuck at home, what am I going to do? And we just bought a bunch of masks from her to continue supporting her and help, take as good care of her as we possibly can, and go from there. So I think it is giving yourself permission to make these short-term pivots that aren't necessarily going to be forever. But what I will say is the skill of taking these steps, and it takes courage, right? I get it. Like, especially if you've been, accustomed to receiving a regular paycheck, the fear and uncertainty around kind of having to, hunt for your own dinner, so to speak, having to, be responsible for your own financial destiny. It can be scary, but I'll tell you, the skills that you learn in this time are skills that will serve you for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And you'll be better off, you'll be stronger because of it.
Yeah, it's your hand is forced, but I'm with you. I believe that people, once they come through this, are going to find themselves on a better footing. And the world's shifting. Self-employment is something that's going to be the new norm, as compared to some people. Most people go to work for other companies. I think it's going to be the new norm. And the thing that I think everybody should know is that even if you're working in a company, just got a paycheck, you probably were working on a computer. You probably had to do some level of organizational and business work. These things are all skills that you can apply to now going out and creating your own income. You don't have to go build a huge company. You just have to create income for yourself, and you probably will have a lot more fun doing it that way. So.
Totally. And you don't have to be a PhD expert. Like I like to tell people, and I had a call recently where my 2 boys came in. I've got a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, and they literally just came in and interrupted like a call like this, what we're doing. And I was trying to prove a point. And I turned to them and I turned to my 5-year-old and I said, is your brother pretty good at math? He said, yeah, he knows everything. He's like, he knows all my answers. He knows how to like do all the things I'm trying to do. I was like, yeah, he's pretty smart, right? And he was just saying like, yeah, he knows all the things. And I was trying to prove this point that you don't have to be a PhD in a topic to be able to help other people. You just need to be 1 or 2 steps ahead of them. Right. In the same way that my 8-year-old is basically teaching my 5-year-old math. And the same way that you can be 2 or 3 steps ahead of your market, helping them, teaching them along the way. You don't have to have world-class level of expertise in any subject to be able to serve and help people in a huge and powerful way.
I know you didn't come here to plug your books, but I'm a big fan of your books. And Choose I think is something that is, it was, you wrote that before any of this stuff happened, right? And there it is. And now I believe, you started this, so I'm kind of like bringing it full circle now with the last couple of minutes that we have here, is that you started by saying we have kind of the decision paradox. So, the fact that there might be choices is what paralyzes us as compared to, the fact that you feel like you don't have any options. There are choices, but what would you say the overriding message of Choose is?
The overriding message of Choose is that the single most important decision you need to make before deciding to become your own boss, do your own thing, is not what you're going to do, it's who you're going to serve. What you are going to do may change, may pivot, may shift, but who you're going to serve, that is the foundation on which your entire business is built. Are you serving restaurant owners? Are you serving moms with kids of a certain age? Are you serving people who are about to retire? Are you serving people who want to learn how to play the saxophone? Who are you choosing to serve? Once you make that decision, then that's the first domino from which everything else falls. And the thing I like to tell people is that your who today doesn't have to be your who forever. So just remember that. The group of people that you choose to serve today, I've been in the orchid care business. I've sold high-end water filtration systems. I've taught people how to make Scrabble tile jewelry. Yes, it's a thing. I've taught people how to improve their memory through our programs, play tennis, play golf, train your dog, all these different markets. And so your who today doesn't necessarily need to be your who forever. But the most important thing is to just get out there and take that first step and get started.
I couldn't think of a better way to tie this up, Ryan, and I think that is because I think that can unlock the paralysis, right? If you can choose who you want to serve, then everything else sort of starts making sense, and you can move down the road. So, listen, Revealed, we've been really concerned about some of the challenges people are facing right now, and we know that on the other side of challenge is opportunity, and we're hoping to get people there. And no doubt that everything you just shared is going to go a long way in helping with that mission. So thank you so much for being here and doing this.
Well, thanks for having me, Patrick. And the last thing I'll say before we wrap is if you get stuck, if you're not sure where to begin with a practice business. That's exactly what I did. Practice business. It doesn't have to be your forever business. Just treat it as a practice business to get things going, get things off the ground, and go from there. So Patrick, thanks so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here. And hopefully this has been helpful and somewhat inspiring and give some kind of initial direction for folks on what they can do in light of everything that's going on in the world right now.
Well, Ryan, it was all that and more, so thanks so very much. So that concludes episode 1. Really great to be with you, so thank you for watching. I want to remind you, please share this with other people. We have a long way to go, 9 episodes in this series, so other people can jump in. They can learn the kind of stuff that you just learned from this episode. I look forward to seeing you in episode 2.
If you think the thoughts and do the things that other people who are successful like you want to be do, then it's very likely that you will achieve the same success that they did. Get a group of peers that are actually successful. Get away from your family that means well but is telling you, we believe in you, but you're never gonna make it doing that. That's crazy, right? Those people are good intentioned, but they will absolutely poison your mindset. You gotta get around that mastermind of peers who are doing what you want.
If you are at a point right now, which is like, okay, I'm at a time of maximum fear, right? I'm at a time of maximum struggle. Do know that it doesn't take anything more than a switch in mindset to say, actually, this is like, as they say, in every crisis is an opportunity. This is the ultimate time, if I can get past the fear and the struggle, to see the opportunity in this and switch the way I'm thinking about this, because there is someone out in the world right now who needs my talents and my expertise for what they're doing at the moment.
Okay, now people need to get paid. Now there's emergency here, and just go for yourself. Go to any website selling a product, scroll to the bottom in the footer section, and 9 times out of 10, you will see a link that says affiliates, okay? Or affiliate program. You are the bridge that connects the two, and you're making $500 a sale, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 a sale. And by the way, the better you get at this, the more money you make. It's super risk-free. It's super easy to try out.